All right, here we go. 3, 2. Welcome into Sports Tonight. Bailey Burmaster joined alongside our Aaron Ladd. Got another show queued up for you today. We're going to talk about that big game on Friday, Georgia-Bama. I'm going to talk about the latest Falcons injury updates, and then obviously we have to talk about this Braves-Mets series, a massive one.
Yeah,
and
important.
Also, a little worrisome now that we have a hurricane.
There's a lot going on. Never a dull day.
It's wild, but we'll talk about the scenarios. And, even though this is a big series, there's still a lot of ball to be played. So
Seems like these two teams always find a way to have an important series this time of the year.
It's not as crisp as, yes, if they sweep, it's great. They're probably going to the playoffs. But if they take 2 or 3, that's when it gets really interesting. So we'll dive into that. Obviously, got to talk about the Dream and Liberty Game 2 tonight. And then we're going to go into what is on your mind. But let's start with Georgia-Bama. Aaron, fairly, obviously not new to our station,
Yeah.
but, not new to the area, new to our station. What's your preview of this one? Because this is arguably one of the biggest matchups for Georgia this season outside maybe Texas and now that Tennessee game, but they haven't won in Tuscaloosa too much.
Bailey, we were talking about this game last year or in previous iterations of the college football playoff. Maybe it feels much more important than I'm giving it credence this year. With 12 teams in, you can lose a couple games. You can afford to slip up. I know neither of these teams want to slip up. Bama's had their way with UGA. I looked it up. 8 of the last 9 games these two teams have faced off. Alabama and the Crimson Tide have come out on top. The one game being the 2022 National Championship, so Georgia fans will obviously be excited about that. It's an early season measuring stick for both two teams, but I'm curious what Georgia looks like after that Kentucky game, right? That was the game where everybody thought that they had the scare. Maybe that was what they needed to kind of shake them up and wake them up. And we'll see what happens when they face, obviously, another top 5 team this weekend.
Something that I thought was somewhat concerning, and I asked Kirby about on Monday, is their starts. Take Tennessee Tech out of it, because no offense,
Doesn't
it's Tennessee
count.
Tech.
Respectfully.
It does not count, respectfully. But if you look at that Clemson and Kentucky game, slow first halves, no touchdowns in either of those games, only a total of 12 points, very much not like Georgia, kind of showing they're more of a second half team. But when you play these teams like Texas or Alabama or Tennessee or Ole Miss or Auburn, you can't start that slow. So you have to think that's something they're going to get to. And Kirby basically said, yes, every team wants to start fast, but sometimes that's just not the case. It's obviously something you want to work on and get a hold of. But we'll see. It's going to be very interesting. Kirby did talk on Monday along with Smile Munden and Arian Smith. And, he talked about Nick Saban not being there anymore and what
That's
that
different. That's weird. It doesn't feel right yet.
It's weird, and maybe I'm in a different boat here because I went to SEC Media Days and it was so vastly covered there. Yeah. I'm kind of over it.
He just got his name on the stadium. They just freshly put the paint down on the field. Yeah.
And you know what? I get it. But also, Nick Saban not being there doesn't do anything to this game.
You don't think so?
No, I think it's still the players he recruited. I think obviously Kalen DeBoer being the coach changes things, and they have their own people. But I don't think it's the storyline I'm paying attention to. At the end of the day, Saban's been gone for months. We covered it in depth at SEC Media Days. I want to see who comes out with a win because I think that's going to be very telling for the playoff format.
Absolutely.
Because I do think you're right. I do think, these teams that have been powerhouses can lose one.
Still find their way in somehow. The committee will still find a way to put them in.
The interesting thing, if you remember, it will be the championship teams, and then after that, it's very much who they believe is the best-looking team, who looks the best. Yeah. So you could put Georgia essentially anywhere.
And you could have a close loss in this game, too, right? Like, you could lose by a point or two, and the committee still say, hey, that's a really quality loss on the road. This is still a really tough. There's not a lot of teams that are going to have a game like this on their schedule in general. I do wonder what Alabama looks like. They haven't been, quote-unquote, tested yet. Against South Florida was the one game where everybody's like, wow, that game came down to the fourth quarter. This is completely different and a completely different mindset.
I do think Jalen Milroe is going to look even better than he did last year. And maybe I'm sipping the Kool-Aid a little bit, but I do think he played really well last year, and I think he's only probably progressed at this point, especially with having a receiver like Ryan Williams. All of that, which Kirby talked about, so let's hear what he had to say about the matchup upcoming on Saturday.
What they've done this year as well. It's different. Yeah, how much, if any, insight at all does Traveris have on this Alabama team, and what has he brought to this team now as he's your co-defensive coordinator and safeties coach?
Well, he's a really good coach. He's a really good recruiter. He's a great person. So he's brought a lot of energy, enthusiasm, confidence day to day in our players. He's a good football coach. So we're very fortunate to have him, and he's got a lot of knowledge. As far as pertaining to them, I mean, he really hasn't been part of their staff. So it's like intricacies into what they do defensively or offensively, not a lot there. I mean, he knows some of their players, but we know a lot of their players too because we recruited a lot of them. And, I mean, Dante was with some of them out in California. So, you know, it's not a lot to speak of, a lot of things that you can hang your hat on. You're worried about how we play, not the particulars about their players.
Are you expecting it to be strange for you going back there without having Nick Saban as the other coach?
No, I don't expect it to be strange. I mean, it's just the normal course of progression. I think it's strange going back there sometimes because I lived there. Our kids were born there and lived there for 9 years and had such great experiences there. But we had that in COVID. It was more strange then because of the stands.
Kirby, I know the sample size might be small, just 3 games. What type of jump in Jalen's game have you seen since the last time you played him?
Yeah, it's considerable jump as a just natural pocket passer. You see him make more throws now that are like rhythm throws, on time throws, RPO throws. You know, you can tell he's become more comfortable with those things. Still, some of his best and most exciting plays are when things break down or when he runs the ball by design. Either one is very dangerous. But you can see him as a deep ball passer, the vertical passing game, the shots, the rhythm throws, the outs, the timing throws, the RPO throws. He's improved immensely at that part of his game, but he's always been good at the athletic part of the game.
You actually touched on this a minute ago, but I was just going to ask you, is there any nostalgia at all when you go back to Tuscaloosa now, having spent so much time there, so much time in that stadium?
Less now. I mean, it's just, you know, you move on. I think last time we went, it was 4 or 5 years from the time we had lived there, and it's so weird when you play there because you're in and out. You know, you're there and then you're gone. So it's just different, you know. But you really focus on the players, what they have to do, what we have to do to execute, that it takes away from that thing. There's a lot of people that are still there in the organization that I'm close with and have a lot of respect for, but that's the case in a lot of these places in the SEC.
Yeah, Kirby, I guess to follow up on Milroe, one, do you look at all at last year's game just with the jump you feel that he's made, and two, what are the challenges of defending him, especially for a front seven, you know, keeping rush lanes, keeping contained, things like that? Yeah,
you know, do you look at last year's game? Well, you always look at things like that from a personnel standpoint, matchup. You see guys in there, that game, our game, that overlap, but with him, the challenges are immense because he's an incredible football player. I mean, there is no design to a play that you can draw up and then say, well, I'm pretty sure this is going to happen on this play with him, because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, sometimes the worst thing you can do is cover everybody with him. And sometimes the best thing you can do is cover everybody. It just depends. Are you capable of getting him down on the ground and tackling him at times? What matchups do you have? He is as different a football player in college football as I've played against in a long time, because people think he's just a runner, and that's not the case. He has a tremendous arm and can do things with his arm that other people can't. He can reach spots on the field and get it there faster than you can break on it, better than most arm talent people. So it's a tremendous challenge to defend a guy like him.
Kirby, over here, the value of the two-part question, the value of the bye week for Carson and Coach Bobo to look at the first 3 games, and then 2, just where your linebacking core is at in this game compared with the last time you met Alabama.
Value for Coach Bobo and Carson, I think it's relative because they had an off week too, so it's not like you're going to make these incredible jumps because of a bye week. What do you do in the bye week? You look back at yourself. You look back and you do quality control. You try to find tendency breakers. You try to find new wrinkles. You try to really get better at blocking and tackling, which is what football is. And that's what we focused on, was that. How do we get better as an entire team, even the younger part of your team? So that was the focus of the bye week. In terms of our linebacking core, I think Smile is closer to healthy. I think this time last year he was having to play with a really hurt foot, and he was pushing through, and he pushed through in the SEC championship game with a significant injury. And I don't know if he's 100%, but he's much closer. I mean, he's come off a significant surgery and playing much better. The two younger guys are a little bit older and a little more experienced. But still, those guys, when I look at Raylan and CJ, they're relatively young players, and they're in their second year. They got to play a lot more last year than typically they would. And then Jalen's playing as well, multiple positions. But those four guys are all playing good.
Kirby, how is Michael Williams, and are you optimistic he'll be able to play?
I'm hopeful. We'll see. He didn't do much last week. He got a lot of rehab Friday and Sunday, and was able to run and do some things Friday and Sunday, which is positive, but hadn't been out to practice today, and we'll see how today goes.
Yeah, just as well, how are Warren Brinson and Jordan Hall doing, and how much in the offseason did you go back and rewatch that Alabama game and try and diagnose what went wrong for y'all that day?
I don't watch the games in the offseason. We watch the games after it. We go through and critique those and then try to get better at the tendencies and the things we have to. We look at future opponents, and Alabama was a future opponent, but it wasn't the same staff as it was prior to that. Warren Brinson practiced last week, at the end of the week, and then we're hopeful to get Jordan Hall back, who's been working really hard, tirelessly, doing rehab, and been busting his butt all weekend. So we'll see where he's at today.
Kirby, each week you talk about one of the keys to the game is explosive plays. This Alabama team puts up a lot of explosive plays. How do you prep for that?
Well, you do your job. I mean, they've got explosive plays that are, what would you call off-schedule explosive plays, and they've got on-schedule explosive plays. So when you have a chance at both those, it just increases your opportunity. And their explosives are super explosive. They don't, they're not talking about the 15-20 variety. They're talking about the 50, 60, 70 variety. They've got some really good skilled players out on the perimeter that are explosive. They got a quarterback that defines explosive, and they got good backs. So, when you got good football players and weapons that they have out on the perimeter, it can be explosive. Our job is to try to prevent those, not give up big plays, and a lot of that starts with, how well we play around the quarterback.
You've seen your share of elite wide receivers at Alabama. Is Ryan Williams one of those potentially elite wide receivers, and what kind of problems does he possess for your secondary and your corners?
Yeah, he's in the same line with the guys they've had in the past. Super quick, talented, confident with the ball, great ball skills, great quickness. He's a track athlete that was elite. He's a junior, then he comes out and he's already performing at a high level. I don't think that there's a lot of anxiety or nerves for him. He's not one of these guys that the moment's too big for him. He naturally jumped right in and has made plays in every game, and they have a lot of really good skill players out on the perimeter, and I think that Jalen does a good job of using his skill set to get them the ball.
You mentioned their defense looking a little different now. What stands out to you about the way they played defense through, 3 games?
They played really hard. They got guys flying to the ball, punching at the ball, getting the ball out, disrupting the quarterbacks. They've been really disruptive in terms of things up front they do to create issues, batting balls, and they're physical. I mean, they're physical and fast. When you look at them, they have a depth in their front that they're able to play a lot of guys with size that are hard to move. So they do a really good job defensively. And they're multiple. They got, split safety and single high looks. They do a good job changing it up.
Kirby, I know you sort of over here touched on the touched on this when you talked about going back to Tuscaloosa and some of the feelings you had about that. But I'm just curious, because of your history, personal history with Nick Saban and working for him, and then some great games against him over these last 9 years. Just personally, does it feel any nostalgia in you, or just different, or I think the word strange was used. Is that how does it feel for you personally to not be going against an Alabama team that he's not coaching?
Well, he recruited a lot of them, and they're good players, and I think anytime you go against a really good team that's a powerhouse in college football, that it's a challenge. And I really look at it like this is a hell of an opportunity for our kids, our program, national stage, and we're on the national stage a lot. We've been in the national stage a lot, especially the last 3 to 4 years. So it's the reason kids want to come to Georgia. They say, I want to play in games like that. Most viewed game 2 weeks ago Saturday night was our game. It's going to probably be that way this Saturday night. And when you start looking at it, kids want to have an opportunity to play in those tight games, and that's we're going to have more of them after this. So it's a great opportunity to play in a national stage, and that's what we built our program on is playing tough opponents.
Going back to last year, new coaching staff at Alabama, a lot of transfer players, new people. How much will this game be similar to that one when it comes to their game plan? How similar are these teams, or are they vastly different than they were when you faced them last year?
Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, I don't know their game plan, so I don't know how similar it'll be or different it'll be. I mean, we're a different team. They're a different team. They're a different staff. We're a similar staff. So I can't compare last year's game to this year's.
Coach, in terms of your veteran leadership returning, from a leadership perspective, how have you seen this core group of guys, the upperclassmen, grow since that SEC championship game last year? What impact has it had on them moving forward?
Well, I think each one different impact. There's guys in the locker room, upset, and everybody handles that in different ways. I think, the motivation it gives to guys to want to come back and have an opportunity to win an SEC championship, which, this group didn't do last year. They have a chance to do that. It doesn't all hinge on this game, but that game did. And I certainly think that a lot of our guys, remember it, and they want to use that as motivation, where the motivation should be to play your best and defeat your opponent in a big stage, on the road in the SEC, which is always a challenge. And it's really about the preparation we do today in these next 3 to 4 days.
Kirby, I wonder in the times you may have had a chance to see Nick on TV, what you think of him in that role and what you make of his life after coaching, after obviously being relentless as a college football coach for so many years.
He's extremely thorough, and he enjoys what he does. I'm thrilled that he gets an opportunity to do what he wants to do and be with who he wants to be within his family, and enjoy that. And I'm really happy he's still part of college football, because he makes college football better.
With 3 games under your belt now, how do you evaluate how your team has started in those games?
Well, I wouldn't say that we've started fast. I would say that everybody wants to start fast, but sometimes it's like that. And sometimes there's no rhyme and reason, and then sometimes there's things you do that you could do better, you could execute better. Sometimes they just beat you and they just whip you. And it's gone both ways, offensively and defensively. We've had drives defensively that we gave up too much field position and too many consecutive third downs that we didn't get off the field, that maybe just made our offense start backed up. But it hasn't been perfect, but we have shown resiliency, and that's a trait that I would probably trade outside of perfect. I would trade a lot of traits for resiliency.
Kirby, you mentioned some of the guys maybe using last year's loss as motivation. Just, is there anything you guys do as a staff to make sure that they're not trying to chase ghosts and change the past?
Nope. I mean, I don't think we chase the past at all. I think that you watch the tape, 2 different teams. We're focused on like what we can do to be our best this week. the ghost we're chasing is past performances this year and what we can do to clean that up and how we can be more efficient. I wouldn't say it's anything to do with them.
Hi there. I was just wondering if you had any kind of comment on the reckless driving arrests, particularly the Daniel Harris arrest after the Kentucky game.
Yeah, I'm terribly disappointed and something that we don't stand for.
Time for one more question. Forgot my question, but go on another one. Over the last 51 games, you've only had 2 losses, both to Alabama. What would winning this game mean to you?
It means we got to get ready for Auburn. I mean, it's really that simple, guys. It's a conference schedule game. It's going to be really tough environment on the road, which sounds like a broken record because the last one we were talking about was a tough environment on the road. And you know, win or lose, the next one's going to be really hard, and the next one's going to be really hard, and the next one's going to be really hard. They all are hard. And in our league, in our conference, you see it every week. It's tough. It's physical. So we got to have a great week of preparation. They got a tremendous team. Nothing but respect for Kalen DeBoer and what he's done with that team and that staff. I think he's done a great job of putting them in a position to grow and get better. And they've gotten better with each game. So we need to do the same this week.
All right, so where the Falcons are concerned, we'll hear from them on Wednesday for their matchup about the Saints, but we do have a little bit of an injury update.
Yeah, that's the biggest story, I think, from that Sunday night game against the Chiefs. It's along that offensive line, a big reason why they didn't have success running the ball. 2 big injuries along the offensive line. Center Drew Dahlman is the good news, if you will. Actually, he's not. That's got that switch.
Caleb McGarry.
Yes, Caleb McGarry is the good news. Dahlman's going to be down for a while. The injury update from Jeremy Fowler was a high ankle sprain, 3 of the most dreaded words in all of professional football. Sounds like he could be an injured reserve candidate, which means at the very least he's going to miss 4 games. Mm-hmm. And we know these next 2, Bailey, extremely crucial inside the division with the Saints coming into the Dome on Sunday and then the Buccaneers.
And it's a quick turnaround. I don't think people realize that.
Yeah.
So they play Sunday against the Saints, and then they host the Bucs for Thursday Night Football.
Brutal stretch.
Brutal. I mean, that's going to come so quick. They're going to feel it in their bodies, that's for sure. Okay, we have to talk about this series because it has a lot of implications on it. Braves, Mets. 3-game series for the Braves against the Mets, and then they host the Royals for 3. So 6 more, and then the regular season's over. We were just running through the scenarios.
Wild.
So tell me if I'm wrong about this,
Okay.
but I put together a graphic, and this is how it sits. The Braves do somewhat control their fate. If you sweep the Mets, you're in control. Pretty much probably going to be good, barring anything crazy.
Mm-hmm.
If you take 2 of 3, you have to see how everything pans out between the Mets and the Diamondbacks. But you still have the tiebreaker, I believe, over the Mets for winning the series.
They don't want to worry about any of that, right?
So
Like,
if you lose the series,
it's
you're
over.
done.
Yes.
So what's made it interesting, too, is they used to be 2 games back of the Diamondbacks and the Mets. Now they're only 2 games back of the Mets, and the Diamondbacks lost last night, so they're only 1.5 games back. So the Diamondbacks could make this interesting because they have no tiebreaker over the Braves or the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, if the Diamondbacks plummet here to close out the season, the Braves and Mets could make it in those wild card spots.
And the Diamondbacks are the team that won the pennant last year in the
Mm-hmm.
National League. They've got that want and that hunger to get back. FanGraphs crunches the numbers on all sports. They have Major League Baseball numbers on this. The Braves currently 46% chance to make the postseason, which is still kind of crazy, Bailey, considering all the all-stars that they've had on the injured list throughout this year, still trying to compete. No Acuna, no Spencer Strider. With this 3-game series against the Mets, you have Schwellenbach and Sale going to start off those first 2. It gives you the momentum and the confidence that they could possibly win those first 2 and set themselves up.
And there was a lot of talk about pitching, of do you do Chris Sale tonight in hopes to maybe have him for Sunday later in the week, but they flopped him. It will be Schwellenbach tonight and then Chris Sale tomorrow. The Mets did the opposite with Severino, who's going to pitch tonight, and then they're hoping to have him Sunday if needed. So chess, checkers, at this point.
It's playoff baseball already.
My head hurts.
Right?
Something Braves fans will love to hear is the Phillies clinch the division.
I don't know why mention that.
I
on
mean,
these
it's
airwaves?
sports. We hate them. I know. I get it. We're going to move on. Dream and Liberty have a big one tonight as well. Game 2 of the first round playoffs. Liberty took the first one. This is game 2. It's really interesting. Tanisha Wright, talking after the game, talked about the physicality of New York and how they felt like they had to match that, and how they were going to lean on Tina Charles. Because Tina's a vet and she's been around this league, and that was something she referenced. Is she's like, she cares more about the character of their team in these moments than almost like what's happening on the court.
Yeah.
Which I think is like her trying to tell them, like, this is the playoffs, you need to level up. But let's tune into a little bit of what Tanisha Wright had to say after that first loss as they get ready for game 2.
Did a great job of punching first. When you're in a series like this and we just had a game with them, I think, you want to come out and make a statement. They did a good job of making a statement. But the playoffs is a series for a reason. So we got to go back to the drawing board, figure out how we're going to handle their physicality, because I think that was the biggest thing that they changed up. They were super physical and we didn't handle it well. But we'll go back to the drawing board and figure it out, and we'll be ready for game 2.
Coach, just a couple things if I could. First, in terms of Tina,
Yeah.
she played every second in the first half.
Yep.
Obviously, was setting the tone early. Take me through your thoughts about her, both the first half and then also it seemed like fairly limited in the second half.
Yeah, the first half, she was the one who was getting us good looks on the offensive end, and we always have to have a presence in the post to keep people honest. So wanted to keep her in just because of that, and she has the most experience on our team in terms of being in this environment. And so you always need somebody who can be a calming force out there for your team. And I thought keeping her out there was really important. And once the game ballooned to 20, I decided to make a decision because we have another game.
And then just the other part is Ryan had, it seemed like some adjustments, obviously a slow start in this one. I know she scored 36 in the playoff opener last year. So what was different about this one, and what were you guys able to do to get her more involved second half?
Their physicality, I think, really bothered us as a whole. It dictated what we did, obviously on the defensive end too. So they were able to get out in transition and get some easy opportunities and easy looks. So I think their physicality really bothered us. We have to make that adjustment and understand it is playoff basketball, and to expect it to be like this.
You had mentioned before the game how much you like Leonie Fibish's game. Just
Yeah.
wondering what the plan was for her coming into tonight and just what she did that gave you guys so many problems.
I thought she did a really good job of shooting the ball. She shot the ball really well. A lot of those opportunities came in transition and came from us being in scramble mode because we didn't do a great job of keeping people in front of us, so they were able to move the ball well, which is exactly what New York does. So we have to do a better job of keeping our pressure on them, understanding that we have to return the physicality, the same physicality that they gave to us, we have to be able to give to them to slow that down.
Just defensively then, I mean, what did she bring to New York's lineup? Is that some of the added physicality that you're talking?
All right, let's wrap it up. What's on your mind tonight, Aaron?
This is an easy one because she has been taking the internet by storm. I know you know who I'm talking about by now, Bailey. I mean, come on, the most lovable and adorable hippo that anyone has ever seen. It's Moo Dang, who I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. She has moods for everyone, everything. Like, you can find your spirit animal, and it's online. I'm sure you've seen Moo Dang. I'm trying to visit her at this point. You know, she's like a viral
Where
star.
is she?
Thailand. She's in Thailand. I
Okay,
know.
I'm not improving that.
I'll take
I did see a Kirby meme with Moo Dang.
Yes.
And that was really good.
Sports teams have adopted Moo Dang.
Mine is actually sports related.
Okay, yeah, I can't
but
relate.
it's okay. That's what's. I love fun. What's on your mind? Jaden Daniels, man.
I didn't see the whole thing. I saw the stat line though. That's impressive.
And you know what I liked? I liked that Cliff Kingsbury heard the crap that was talked all week about them just being some vanilla offense.
College offense, I saw people saying.
And Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels just went out there and stunt on the Bengals, who now have not won a game yet this season.
Do you think the Commanders can win that division, though? It's been a long time since the NFC East has had back-to-back division winners.
I don't know, but I'll say this. Who am I to say no?
Ooh, a rookie quarterback winning their division their first year has not happened in a
I'm
long
not
time.
saying yes, but I'm also here to say, who am I to say no? So I'd love to see that on Monday Night Football. We're not even going to talk about Bills-Jags because the Bills just absolutely throttled them.
Not worth it.
Okay, but join us the rest throughout the week. We'll have all the latest headlines. We'll get to hear from the Braves, and we'll keep bringing the latest for that Georgia-Bama matchup.
Moo Dang.
Moo Dang. Have a great week.